The salvage ship moved slowly through the dark, its engines quiet as it drifted near the broken edge of an old trade lane. Metal pieces and frozen dust floated like a silent storm. Kang Jisoo stood alone in the small medical bay, cleaning tools that rarely saw use. Most days were calm and boring. That night felt different, though he could not say why. A warning light blinked on the wall. The ship had picked up a weak signal. Not a beacon meant to be found, but a cry forced into the dark. Jisoo felt a tight pull in his chest. Signals like that usually meant death came late instead of fast. The pilot, Park Daejin, brought the ship closer. Between broken panels and old cargo shells, they saw it. A single escape pod, cracked and burned, spinning slow. Power was almost gone. Life signs were fading. They pulled the pod inside with care. The metal shell hissed as it met warmer air. When the hatch opened, Jisoo stepped forward without thinking. Inside lay an alien woman, taller than any human he knew, her skin pale with a soft silver tone. Dark blood clung to her side, thick and glowing faintly in the low light. She was alive, but barely. Jisoo did not stop to stare. He had learned long ago that looking too long cost time. He moved fast, pulling her from the pod and laying her on the medical table. The scanners struggled, unable to read her body right. Her armor was grown, not built, fused to her flesh like living bone. It was torn open across her ribs. He took a slow breath and began. Jisoo cleaned the wound with steady hands. The blood reacted to air, darkening as if angry. He adjusted the pressure, changed the solution, watched how her body answered. Human tools were simple, but his mind was trained to adapt. He worked by feel, by small signs. The rise of her chest, the twitch of her fingers, the slight easing of pain when he pressed just right. Outside the bay, the ship creaked as debris brushed its hull. Daejin spoke over the comb, asking if she would live. Jisoo answered with truth. He said he did not know, but he would try. As he worked, he noticed markings on her skin near the wound. Thin lines shaped like stars and wings. When his cloth passed over them, they glowed soft blue, then faded. His breath caught, but he did not pull back. Fear did not help the dying. Her eyes opened. They were deep black, filled with light like a night sky full of distant suns. She did not cry out or move. She only looked at him. Jisoo met her gaze, calm and focused, as he had done with many patients. He spoke in a low voice, telling her she was safe, telling her to stay still. She watched him for a long moment. Then her lips moved. Her voice was weak, but clear. Do you know who you are touching? Human. Jisoo paused only long enough to adjust his grip. He answered without lifting his eyes from the wound. He said he was touching someone bleeding out, and if she wanted to live, she should let him finish. A flicker of shock crossed her face. Not anger, not pride, shock. She tried to rise, but pain forced her back. Jisoo placed a firm hand on her shoulder, not rough, not gentle, just sure. He told her again to stay still. His tone carried no command, only fact. The alien woman studied him as if he were a strange thing. She had expected fear. She had expected worship or panic. Instead, she saw only care and focus. He sealed torn tissue with a tool meant for human skin. It should not have worked. It did anyway. Her body responded, pulling together, fighting to live. Jisoo frowned in thought, then adjusted his method. Humans survived because they changed when rules failed. Outside the bay, alarms whispered. Long-range sensors showed movement far away. Daejin did not speak yet. He knew Jisoo needed time. The alien woman breathed easier now. Strength slowly returned to her limbs. She lifted one hand, stopping Jisoo for a moment. Her fingers were long and strong, marked with the same glowing lines. "You treat me as an equal," she said. "Or as less." Jisoo looked at her then. He met her eyes fully. He said he treated her as someone hurt. Nothing more. Nothing less. Silence filled the bay. Even the ship seemed to listen. At last, she spoke again, her voice steadier now. "I am Aurelia," she said. "Queen of the Galactic Concord." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Entire worlds bowed to that name. Fleets burned and rose by her command. Species lived or vanished by her will. Sue nodded once. He asked if she could move her legs. Aurelia stared at him, stunned. She tested her limbs slowly. They obeyed. She looked back at him, something new in her eyes. Not pride, not power, something close to wonder. "You feel no fear," she said. Jisoo cleaned his hands. He said fear could wait. Bleeding could not. The ship shuddered lightly. Daejin's voice came through, tight now. Unidentified ships had entered the sector. Fast, armed. Aurelia closed her eyes, pain flashing across her face again. She whispered that they had found her. Jisoo turned back to her. He asked who they were. She said enemies. She said killers. He thought for only a second. Then he told Daejin to prep for hard burn and manual flight. No auto paths. No signals. Just human hands and human risk. Aurelia opened her eyes again. She looked at the small ship, at the thin walls, at the man who had touched her wounds without asking for her name. Her voice was quiet now. "You will die for this," she said. Jisoo met her gaze. He said maybe. Then he said humans had done worse for less. The engines roared. The ship leapt into motion, diving into the debris field. Metal screamed past the hull. The medical bay lights flickered. Aurelia felt the ship move like a living thing, rough and wild. Not smooth like royal vessels. Not safe, but alive. She understood then that she had not been saved by power or by law. She had been saved by a human who refused to look away. The ship shook as it cut through the debris field, metal scraping metal as old wreckage spun past the hull. Kang Jisoo stayed in the medical bay, one hand braced against the wall, the other steady on the controls beside Aurelia's bed. He watched her breathing more than the flashing lights. As long as her chest kept rising, there was hope. Aurelia felt every movement of the ship. Pain still burned along her side, but it no longer ruled her. She turned her head slowly, studying the human who had dared to touch her without permission. His face was calm, marked by focus and quiet strain. He did not look like a warrior. He did not look like a ruler. He looked like someone who endured. Outside, Park Daejin guided the ship by hand. He ignored the warnings screaming from the console. Auto systems were useless in a field like this. Only instinct mattered now. He clipped thrusters, cut power, then surged forward again, letting debris hide their heat trail. Human ships were small. That was their strength. In the medical bay, Aurelia finally spoke again. She asked why they had not turned her over to the nearest authority. She said there would be reward, titles, protection. Jisoo answered without looking at her. He said they had not known who she was when they pulled her from the pod. He said leaving someone to die was not a human habit. Not the good ones, at least. That answer struck deeper than any weapon. Aurelia had ruled for centuries. Every act around her was weighed by gain or fear. Even mercy was often a show. Yet here was a being from a young species, considered weak by the galaxy, who acted without calculation. It unsettled her. She tried to sit up again. Jisoo stopped her with a raised hand and a sharp look. He told her she would tear the wound open. She hesitated, then obeyed. The Queen of the Galactic Concord lay back at the word of a human medic. The ship lurched hard. Aurelia felt the pressure crush against her chest. She reached out without thinking and grabbed Jisu's arm. He did not pull away. He adjusted his stance and stayed with her until the shaking eased. Daejin's voice came through the cung, tight and low. The enemy ships were closer now. They were not firing yet. They were hurting. Aurelia closed her eyes. She knew this tactic well. They wanted her alive. Her death would shake the Concord, but her capture would break it. She told Jisu the truth. She said the ships belonged to the Varkish Dominion, a power that had smiled in council halls while sharpening knives in the dark. They had struck her convoy when she least expected it. Her guards had died buying her seconds. Jisu listened. He did not curse. He did not ask why. He simply asked how fast their ships were. When she answered, he let out a slow breath. He told Daejin they were faster. Daejin laughed once, short and sharp. He said that was fine. Humans had outrun worse. He cut the comm and threw the ship into a sudden dive, plunging deeper into the debris where larger ships could not follow easily. Aurelia felt something shift inside her. Not fear, not hope, curiosity. She asked Jisu why humans still flew ships so manually. The galaxy relied on perfect systems and flawless predictions. Humans seemed to embrace error. Jisu said systems broke. People adapted. He said humans trusted hands and eyes because those things could lie and still be corrected. The ship took another hit, a glancing blow that sent sparks raining from the ceiling. Emergency lights bathed the bay in red. Aurelia hissed in pain as the wound flared. Jisu was on her at once, applying pressure, speaking to her in a steady voice. He told her to breathe. He counted with her, slow, even. She obeyed. For the first time in her long life, Aurelia realized she was not in control. And for the first time, she did not feel the need to be. Minutes stretched like hours. The hunters circled closer. One wrong move would tear the human ship apart. Daejin pushed the engines past safe limits. Warnings went silent as systems burned out. In the bay, Jisu finished sealing the wound as best he could. It was not perfect. It would leave a scar. He apologized without thinking. Aurelia touched the sealed flesh with careful fingers. She said scars were marks of survival. Among her people, they were rare. That surprised him. He said among humans, they were common. The ship burst free of the debris field into open dark. For a moment, space was empty and vast. Then the enemy ships appeared, blocking their path like steel predators. Daejin swore. He had one move left. He killed all power. The ship went dead, drifting silent and cold. No lights. No heat. No signal. Just a piece of space trash among countless others. Aurelia felt the sudden stillness. She knew this trick. Few species dared it. It required faith that the enemy would look for life, not emptiness. The Varkish ships slowed. Scanners swept the area. They passed close. So close Aurelia felt the weight of their presence. In the dark, Jisu held her hand without realizing it. His grip was firm. Real seconds passed. Then minutes. At last, the enemy ships moved on, convinced she had been torn apart in the debris. Power returned slowly. Lights flickered back to life. Daejin let out a long breath and laughed, the sound shaky with relief. Aurelia turned her head toward Jisu. In the dim light, her eyes shone brighter than before. She spoke softly, with no trace of command. You have endangered yourselves for me. For no promise. Jisu shrugged. He said promises were cheap. Actions mattered more. Something changed then. Aurelia, ruler of the galaxy's greatest alliance, felt respect bloom where pride once lived. Not for human weapons. Not for human ships. But for the quiet strength that let them stand before gods and bleed beside them, not far away. The Concord waited for its queen. Closer still, A small human ship flew on, carrying a truth the galaxy was not ready to face. The ship flew quiet after the escape. Engines kept low to avoid drawing eyes. Stars slid past like slow rain. Park Daejin sat stiff in the pilot's seat, hands resting near dead switches, listening for ghosts that were not there. Kang Jisoo stayed in the medical bay, watching the readings that still made little sense. Aurelia slept at last, her breath deep and even. Hours passed. The danger did not return, but neither did peace. Jisoo cleaned the bay and checked the wound again. The seal held. Her body was healing faster than he expected. That worried him. Fast healing meant energy draw. Energy draw meant risk. When Aurelia woke, she did so quietly. She did not speak at first. She only watched the ceiling lights and listened to the soft hum of the ship. It was a small sound, uneven, alive. Not the perfect silence of royal craft. Jisoo noticed her eyes open and asked how she felt. She searched for words and said she felt less broken. He nodded and told her that was good enough for now. She asked where they were going. He said they were not sure yet. Somewhere empty. Somewhere human ships rarely went. Humans survived best when no one cared enough to chase them. Aurelia considered this. She said the Concorde would be searching for her. Fleets would be deployed. Bounties would spread like fire. Daejin joined them then, leaning in the doorway. He said that was fine. Fleets moved loud. Humans hid quiet. Aurelia studied the two men. They were not soldiers, yet they spoke of survival as if it were an old friend. She realized then that humanity had not reached the stars through peace alone. The ship shuddered once, then steadied. Long-range sensors picked up a faint echo. Not a fleet. Not hunters. Something worse. Aurelia felt it before the alarms. Her body stiffened, eyes narrowing. She whispered that the Varkish had released trackers. Daejin swore under his breath. Trackers did not care about silence. They followed mass and shadow, bending paths like living thoughts. Jisoo asked how many. Aurelia answered honestly. Enough. They had minutes, not hours. Daejin threw power back into the engines. The ship leapt forward, speed climbing into unsafe range. Metal groaned. Warning screamed. Aurelia tried to rise, pain flashing across her face. Jisoo stopped her again, firmer this time. He said she would not help by tearing herself open. She clenched her jaw and lay still, fighting the urge to command. Queens did not like stillness. The first tracker appeared on the screen, a dark shape sliding between stars. Then another. Then more. Daejin said they could not outrun them. Jisoo said then they would confuse them. He asked Aurelia about the trackers. How they thought. What they feared. She hesitated, surprised by the question. Then she answered. She said the trackers were built by a species that trusted patterns. They hunted what made sense. Jisoo smiled thinly. He said humans were very bad at making sense. He told Daejin to plot a course through a nearby gravity knot, a place where old stars pulled space into twisted shapes. No sane pilot flew there. Daejin laughed once. He said humans were not known for sanity. He turned the ship hard. The trackers followed. Gravity tore at the hull. Time felt wrong. Lights bent. Aurelia gasped as pain flared again. Jisoo braced her, counting breaths, keeping her grounded. The trackers began to drift, their paths warping as logic failed them. One slammed into a rock and vanished in fire. Another spiraled into nothing, but not all. One tracker adapted. It slid close, its shadow falling over the ship like a claw. Daejin shouted that they were out of options. Jisoo looked at the medical bay, at tools, at batteries meant for human hearts. He made a choice. He rerouted power from life support to a single pulse emitter, crude and ugly. He warned Dejin to hold steady for 3 seconds. Aurelia realized what he meant too late. She tried to protest. He met her eyes and shook his head. He said humans borrowed time when they had to. The ship went cold. Air thinned. Hearts raced. Jisoo fired the pulse. The burst tore through the tracker, scrambling its sense of mass and shadow. It screamed, a sound felt more than heard, and flew apart. Life support came back just in time. The ship gasped like a swimmer, breaking the surface. Silence followed. They had survived again. Dejin slumped in his seat, laughing and shaking. He said he hated smart ideas. Jisoo checked Aurelia at once. The wound had bled. Not much. Enough to remind them of limits. She looked at him with something like awe. She said no one had ever risked their own breath for hers. He said people did it every day on Earth. Doctors, miners, parents. He said it was normal. Aurelia understood then why the Concord feared humanity's future, not their weapons. Their refusal to rank lives. As the ship drifted free of the gravity knot, a signal reached them at last. A Concord code. Gentle, careful. Aurelia listened, eyes distant. Her people were close. She looked back at the 2 humans. She said she would not forget this debt. Not as queen, not as a person. Jisoo said debts were heavy. He preferred trust. The ship turned toward a meeting point. Small and bright against the dark. Far away, the galaxy shifted, unaware that its balance had already begun to change. The meeting point lay ahead, like a calm eye in the storm, a slow turning ring of light against the dark. Concord ships waited at a careful distance, their shapes smooth and bright, nothing like the scarred human salvage craft. Kang Jisoo felt the change in the air, even before scanners confirmed it. Power levels rose. Signals layered over one another. Order pressed close. Aurelia watched the ships without joy. Relief came, but it carried weight. She knew what waited beyond the airlock. Counsels, questions, fear dressed as concern. She turned her head toward Jisoo, measuring the man who had kept her alive with hands that shook only after danger passed. Park Dejin brought the ship in slow. He kept his hands visible, movements clear. Humans survived first contact while looking harmless and acting honest. The Concord escorts mirrored them, forming a loose shell. Weapons stayed hot. Trust stayed cold. The docking seals joined with a soft thud. Pressure equalized. Silence followed. Aurelia tried to stand. Pain cut through her side, sharp and warning. Jisoo moved at once, steadying her. He told her the wound was not ready for pride. She accepted his support without protest. That alone would have shaken half the galaxy. When the hatch opened, light spilled in, white and clean. Figures waited beyond, tall and armored, faces hidden. A murmur ran through them when they saw Aurelia alive. Another murmur followed when they saw her leaning on a human. Aurelia raised a hand. The sound died. She stepped forward slowly, every move controlled. She spoke with calm authority, telling them she lived because of these humans. She told them to stand down. They obeyed. Medical teams rushed forward, carrying devices far beyond anything Jisoo had used. They reached for Aurelia. She lifted her hand again and stopped them. She said not yet. She turned to Jisoo and Dejin. She thanked them, formally, before witnesses. She offered shelter, payment, rank, protection. Words heavy with power. Jisoo listened. He felt the weight of it press against his chest. He looked at Dejin, then back at Aurelia. He said they did not want rank. He said protection that came with chains was not protection. Dejin added that their ship barely fit 3 people. A court would not fit at all. A few guards shifted, offended. Aurelia did not. She asked what they wanted. Jisoo thought for a moment. He said safe passage home. He said no harm would come to Earth for helping her. He said that was enough. The simplicity of it struck like a blow. Aurelia nodded. She promised it. Not as a favor, as a vow. Only then did she allow the Concord medics to take her. As they lifted her onto a floating platform, she reached out and caught Jisoo's wrist. Her grip was firm. She said the scar he left would be remembered. He said scars faded. She smiled faintly, and said some did not. The humans were escorted back to their ship. No chains, no guards too close. Respect walked beside them, uncertain and quiet. As the hatch closed, Daejin let out a breath he had been holding for days. He laughed and said he could use sleep that lasted a year. Jisoo sat in the medical bay alone for a moment. He cleaned the tools again. Old habit? His hands moved on their own, while his thoughts wandered. He wondered if he had just changed something too large to see. On the Concord flagship, Aurelia lay surrounded by light and care. Machines hummed as they finished what Jisoo had started. The wound closed fully at last. The scar remained thin and bright. Counselors gathered, voices low and urgent. They spoke of danger, of humans, of precedent. Aurelia listened until they finished. Then she spoke. She told them of the escape pod, of the debris, of the human who cleaned her wounds without asking her name. She told them how he chose her life over his own air. She told them how humans flew ships that trusted hands more than systems. Because systems failed and hands adapted, some counselors argued. They said it was luck. They said it was reckless. Aurelia agreed. She said reckless courage had saved her when perfect plans had failed. She declared that humanity would be placed under Concord protection, not as subjects, not as pets, as allies in potential. The chamber erupted. Aurelia raised her voice once. Silence returned. She said the galaxy had misjudged humans. She said strength was not only measured in fleets. She said a species that refused to rank lives would one day stand where gods once stood, far away. Jisoo and Daejin prepared their ship to leave. Clear lanes opened before them. Concord signals marked safe paths through space once closed. Daejin shook his head, amazed. He said he would never complain about paperwork again. Jisoo watched the stars align for their jump. He felt no triumph, only a quiet sense of rightness. As the ship slipped into the dark, a message arrived, private and brief. Aurelia's voice filled the bay. She said the galaxy was watching now. She said humans would no longer be ignored. She said that began with one act of care. The message ended. The human ship vanished into the long road home, unaware that history had already marked its passing. The human ship traveled the long way home, choosing quiet routes and empty space. Stars passed like slow thoughts. Kang Jisoo settled back into routine, cleaning the medical bay, checking supplies, fixing small things that had broken during the flight. Park Daejin flew with easy hands now, no longer hunted. Peace felt strange after so much danger. News traveled faster than ships. Signals began to reach them even in deep space. Stories passed from port to port, from traders and smugglers and scouts. A queen had survived an assassination. A small human ship had been there. Details shifted with every telling, but one thing stayed the same. Humans had not bowed. Jisoo tried to ignore it. He had never wanted stories. He wanted lives to continue. That was all. On the Concord capital world, Aurelia stood before a gathered assembly. Her wound had healed fully now, the scar visible when light struck it just right. She wore no crown. She did not need one. She spoke plainly. She said the galaxy had grown comfortable. Strong fleets had replaced strong hearts. She reminded them that the Concord existed to protect life, not to rank it. She told them of a human medic who cleaned her wounds, while debris scraped the hull and death waited outside. She told them how he had spoken to her, as one injured being to another, not as subject to ruler, not as weak to strong. Some listened. Some resisted. Aurelia did not bend. She announced new accords. Human space would be open to Concord trade without forced control. Human worlds would be protected from silent pressure and shadow wars. Any attack on them would be treated as an attack on the Concord itself. Gasps filled the chamber. Aurelia lifted her hand. She said this was not a gift. It was recognition. She said the Concord needed humans as much as humans might one day need the Concord. Far from those halls, the human ship arrived at a quiet station near Earth space. Daijin guided them in, smiling as familiar signals greeted them. Old friends. Old routines. Dock workers stared at the scarred hull. Someone asked what happened. Daijin said they took a wrong turn. Jisoo stepped onto the station and felt gravity settle into his bones. He breathed in recycled air that smelled like oil and metal and home. He thought that was the end of it. It was not. Representatives arrived days later. Not soldiers. Not conquerors. Observers. They asked questions. They listened. They watched humans argue and joke and care for each other in loud, messy ways. Jisoo avoided them. He returned to work, helping where he could, treating injuries, fixing tools, living. One night, a message arrived for him alone. Aurelia's face appeared, calm and steady. She spoke without ceremony. She said the galaxy had shifted. She said fear would follow. She warned that some would test humanity now, looking for weakness. Jisoo listened. She said she would not always be able to stop them. She said humans would need to decide what they stood for when watched. He answered simply. He said humans had always been watched by something stronger. Nature, time, each other. He said they would manage. Aurelia smiled, just a little. She said she believed him. The message ended. Years passed. Human ships changed, slowly. Not by copying Concord designs, but by improving their own ways. Manual controls stayed. Redundant systems multiplied. Crews trained to think when plans failed. When conflict came, humans did not rush to dominate. They rushed to protect. Convoys escorted smaller ships. Medics landed before soldiers. Stories spread again. Some called it foolish. Others called it human. Jisoo grew older. Lines marked his face. His hands ached more often. He still worked in medical bays, teaching younger medics how to read signs machines missed. He told them to watch breathing, to listen to silence. One day, a Concord vessel docked quietly near Earth. No announcements. No crowds. Aurelia walked its halls alone. She met Jisoo in a simple room with no guards. They stood facing each other, older now in different ways. She thanked him again. He told her she did not need to. She asked if he would ever leave Earth. He said no. Someone had to stay. She nodded. She said that was why humanity mattered. And she left. She carried no treaties in her hands. Only certainty. Across the galaxy, powers adjusted. Some pulled back. Some pushed forward and learned hard lessons. Humans did not win every fight. They lost ships. They lost people. They mourned openly and continued. The Concord changed too. Councils listened more. Fleets waited longer. Mercy gained weight. History would argue about causes, but those who knew traced it back to a moment in a broken salvage ship, where a human cleaned a wound instead of asking a name. In quiet hours, Jisoo sometimes thought of that night. He remembered the stars sliding past and the feel of alien blood on his gloves. He remembered choosing action over fear. He never thought of himself as important. Yet the Isung galaxy remembered. Not the Queen alone, the fleets. but the simple truth that humans, when faced with power, chose care. And that choice changed everything.